Hello, thank you for joining us. My name is Antoinette Londejean, and I'm very excited to be here with Duncan Shouler from Giesen in New Zealand. And tonight we will be talking about non-alcoholic wines, but also touching on a whole range of things, including who is Duncan. Duncan, please introduce yourself.
Hi, thanks, Antoinette. Look, it's a pleasure to be here and to have a chat with you today about what we're doing here at Giesen. So, as you've said, I'm Duncan Shouler, and my role is Director of Winemaking at Giesen Wines. We're quite a diverse wine company, and so my role sort of encompasses looking after regular wine production, right from our base level wines right through to our small single vineyard wines that we make off our Claven site. And now, of course, increasingly as well, a range of zero alcohol wines. So my role is to sort of try and drive the new product development and the new products that we're making there. My background is I actually was born in England. I've still got a little bit of an accent. I think it's probably a combination of Kiwi and English. Born in England and lived there and lived in the Mediterranean for a couple of years, which is where I think I got my first sort of hook in wine, I think. And actually studied marine biology initially before wine, and did that as a sort of a lifestyle choice. I found it pretty fascinating. Moved to New Zealand in the early 2000s, and that was sort of at a stage when the New Zealand wine industry was really just starting to explode. It was really getting going. It had already made an impact on wine worldwide. But in the early 2000s, it was really starting to happen. So it was an opportunity. I loved wine for many years and got into the wine industry. And so here I am in not so sunny Marlborough today, but moderately sunny.
Excellent. Well, it's a real pleasure, and I also understand that you're continuing your education further beyond winemaking into more global studies of the Master of Wine program. So congratulations with that very difficult journey. So the Giesen family story. It is a family story, and it's a very rich family story. Can you tell us a little bit about the brothers and how they decided to push Giesen to where it is today?
Yeah, it's a fantastic story, actually. It's really wonderful. So Giesen was founded by three brothers, Theo, Alex, and Marcel. And initially, Alex and Theo left Germany, so they're of German heritage, left Germany in the late 70s, around about 1979, and decided to move to the Southern Hemisphere and start afresh. And initially, they actually moved to Australia. They moved to Australia first, and the first week they were there, they were in Melbourne, and there was a heat wave. So it's 40 degrees Celsius plus, so above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And they jumped in the swimming pool where they were staying, and there was a snake in the swimming pool, the legend has. So they pretty much jumped out of the pool and said, let's go somewhere that's a bit cooler without snakes. And of course, just over the water was the beautiful island or two islands of New Zealand, which is nice and cool. There's absolutely no snakes. So they moved to New Zealand and moved to the area of Canterbury in New Zealand, where they started sort of getting a feel for what they were going to do here. And part of the journey was going to the local wine store and discovering that there really wasn't a lot of choice in local wines. So they said, we should have a go at this. We know a little bit about winemaking. We haven't really done it before. Let's make some wine. So they planted a vineyard and started making wine in Canterbury. Then they got onto their phone to their younger brother, Marcel, who was in Germany, and managed to convince him to A, study winemaking at Geisenheim, and then B, travel all the way to New Zealand and be their winemaker. And off they went, and the rest is history. They've grown from being a very small company down in Canterbury to now New Zealand's largest family-owned winery. So it's a huge success story.
And to give an idea of what that means, as far as production level, average, or number of SKUs, labels that you might offer at the winery, where are we?
Yeah, so we would be certainly one of the top 10 biggest wineries in New Zealand. We'd be around about sort of between sort of 5 and 8 in terms of number. So we're certainly regarded as a large winery. Anything above, sort of 10,000 tons is pretty big here. We're certainly bigger than that. And we are large in volume, but we're certainly complex. Like I think I mentioned earlier when we first started talking, we're quite a complex wine business. We have a lot of products. So we have products that range from grocery, supermarket-driven, classic, simple, clean examples of New Zealand wine, right through to very small production, high-end, single vineyard expressions. And now, of course, zero alcohol as well. So there's a lot of different tiers of wine, and within those, lots of different SKUs. So quite a complex business, but very consumer focused, very focused towards giving the wine drinker what they want, and trying to create styles that really resonate with the consumer worldwide.
And that easily segues into the next topic, which is the indications that were watched to push through the concept of non-alcoholic wine production. So New Zealand is not only leading in sustainability in the wine industry, but it's very quickly starting to trend non-alcoholic products as well, especially with the Sauvignon Blancs. What were the instigators to start thinking about creating non-alcoholic products?
Yeah, it's quite fascinating. So here in New Zealand, we had a program that started, it was about 12, 13 years ago now, called the New Zealand Lighter Wine Program. And that was to encourage producers to consider making slightly lower in alcohol expressions of classic New Zealand wine. And it was very, very successful. But it was mostly wines that were around about 9.5% alcohol. Now, we were part of that program, and we made some lovely wines that were really quite successful around that sort of level of alcohol. But the zero alcohol part of what we did, it actually came from a fitness challenge, the health and well-being challenge that we held at Giesen. And that was in 2019. And we challenged all of the staff, everyone across the country, to partake in this challenge. And of course, it meant counting calories, counting steps, and abstaining from alcohol for a month. And myself and the rest of the winemaking team, we all signed up to it pretty quickly. We thought it was a great initiative. And then just as quickly, we realized that we wouldn't be able to drink wine for a month. So we sort of held an emergency meeting and decided, to try to figure out what we could do. We went out to the wine stores and the supermarkets locally to find non-alcoholic examples. So let's give them a go. And there wasn't much choice. And what we did find, I'm not going to say it was bad because it's always subjective, but it didn't really appeal to us very much. So on the back of that, we said, let's give it a crack. Maybe we could make one. And we could see that people were starting to need something that's not just lower in alcohol, but would like to have the option of zero alcohol wine as long as the quality was good enough. So we started with Sauvignon Blanc. We made a zero alcohol Sauvignon Blanc as a trial. We thought it tasted pretty good. We went for it, and the rest is history.
And so to make any great bottle of wine, you need great grapes. And so let's focus our attention on the vineyards for the next topic. What has changed in the vineyard, your approach to viticulture when you are harvesting for non-alcoholic, or are you harvesting specifically for non-alcoholic? How does it really work?
Yeah, it's a really good question, actually. Now, I probably have to go back to the first point you said there, which is to make great wine, you've got to have great grapes. You can't make great wine out of average grapes. You can certainly make average wine out of great grapes, but you can't do it the other way around. So you need that great base product. And then with zero alcohol wine, more and more we learn that it's the same. The base product is regular wine. So to make a good zero alcohol wine, you've got to start with a really good base wine. So if you start with a substandard base wine, you can't make a good zero alcohol version because one transfers into the other. So pretty much our approach in the vineyard and then through the winery when we make the base wine is very much the same as it would be if we were making a regular example. So let's say, for example, we're making a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. We are using the same practices in the vineyard. We're trying to get the same flavor profiles. The only one thing that's different for something like a Sauvignon Blanc or any of our white wines or alcohol versions is that the acidity has to be managed. When you dealcoholize a wine, the acidity stands out like a sore thumb. So you've got to try and get a little bit more ripeness to drop the acidity level or choose fruit from parts of the country or vineyards that are naturally lower in acidity. And so that means that once you've removed the alcohol, it's a more balanced wine. But apart from that, everything is the same as you would for a regular Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah, it's quite curious. The acidity has really been the characteristic that has stood out across my non-alcoholic wine adventures, and it Your comment makes me wonder what the future of popular varietals would be for non-alcoholic wines if there would be an introduction of wines with less acidity. But in my opinion, your non-alcoholic Sauvignon Blanc is pretty awesome. So definitely keep working on that one for my own enjoyment.
Thank
Um,
you.
and once you take the wine, it's been fermented. So your yeast strains that you're using are the same, or are you using ones that perhaps have more accentuation on certain fruit flavors, or are they more neutral?
Yeah, so now obviously every variety is different, but if I use Sauvignon Blanc as a good example, we're using for our regular Sauvignon Blanc, we're using yeast strains that are very effective at converting the flavor compounds, the thiol compounds, into those flavors that we all know and love in New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. So yeast that are really good at expressing tropical fruit flavors and passion fruit and blackcurrant leaf. So with the zero alcohol, you really, really want that. So you want to create as much flavor in the base wine as you possibly can. Because when you go through the process of dealcoholization, the day may come when this isn't the case, but at the moment at least, it's basically impossible not to lose some flavor. Because ultimately alcohol is flavor and alcohol carries flavor. So if you start with a really intensely flavored base wine, then you can have a much, much better zero alcohol wine. So we use yeast that we would use in our regular wine, and certainly we avoid neutral yeasts. There are some yeasts that are really, really good at producing the flavors we want, as well as consuming some of the acidity. Some of the acidity is metabolized, and that's a good thing because that drops the natural acidity of the wine and helps it to be more balanced as a finished product. But mostly we use the same process as well. It's really only when we dealcoholize the wine that anything changes. Everything leading up to it is mostly the same as regular wine production.
Well, that's brilliant. Let's talk about that process. What is the process to take alcohol out of an alcoholic product?
Yeah, so we use something called spinning cone technology, and so probably before I go into what that is, and it does sound pretty scary. It's not as scary as it sounds, I promise. The what you've got to think about when you remove the alcohol from wine is that you don't want heat. You want to avoid heat because heat affects the flavor of wines very, very quickly. It will reduce the aroma. It can give you cooked characteristics. And so we're trying to avoid that. So to remove the alcohol, you've got to distill it from the wine, but you're trying to do that in a way that has as little heat as possible. And that's what the spinning cone does. So the spinning cone is distillation under a vacuum. So it's a vacuum distillation. And as soon as you distill under a vacuum, you can distill alcohol at a lower temperature, a lower boiling point. And the spinning cone part of it is basically a series of cones that spin, literally, and the wine basically flows down from one cone onto another cone, creating a really large surface area. And when you've got that large surface area and a vacuum, you can distill alcohol at very, very low temperatures. Now, the other thing that we do, like I said, I can't give the game away too much, but I can give you a few good insights into it. One thing that we do as well is that we use the spinning cone to capture the aroma of the wine before we do anything else. Spinning cone is used extensively in the perfume industry for that very reason. So you can take a solution of something and you can capture a concentrated parcel of the aroma and hold that. And what we do, example, with Sauvignon Blanc, is we put the Sauvignon Blanc through at very low temperatures and we just distill the aroma. So then we capture that aroma and put it to one side. So we've protected it. And then we can turn the temperature up slightly and remove all of the alcohol. So at that stage, we've basically got alcohol. We've got zero alcohol wine with no aroma, which is not great. And then we've got this amazing Sauvignon Blanc perfume. And then you can add some of that back in to bring the aroma back to the wine. So the concept is to take the aroma out, to protect it before you remove the alcohol, and then put the pieces back together again.
That's absolutely incredible. I hope the day comes that I can come visit the winery and have a sneak peek at your magical chemistry lab over there. This whole process, determining which varieties to work with, determining the specialized yeast strains that you wanted to use, and of course the machinery you wanted to use must have taken quite a process. But it's left you being one of the most most highly awarded producers of non-alcoholic wine. Can you tell us a little bit about where you see the future of non-alcoholic wines going? And do you have any special projects that you're working on now for that category?
Yeah, look, I think that the future for the category is certainly very, very exciting. I think that people are starting to understand how they can integrate non-alcoholic alternatives into their lifestyle. And it's not always replacing alcoholic drinks. We're finding that a large number of the people driving the category are regular wine drinkers. But then 2 or 3 nights a week, they just want to reduce their alcohol consumption. So it's about integrating zero alcohol wine into a lifestyle. So for us, the key is that they look as winey as they possibly can. So they give people that wine drinking experience. I think that will continue to grow. And I think especially what we're going to see is we're only just touching the surface of this category. There's a lot of growth, both in terms of popularity and volume, but growth in diversity of the products. We're going to see that over the next few years. And I think we'll see some really interesting non-alcoholic alternatives come into the market over the coming years as people want to try new things, try something a bit different. And that won't always be traditional de-alcoholized wine or de-alcoholized beer. There'll be other things as well. At Giesen, special projects, we do like to move quite quickly. We're quite dynamic. So we're always trying something new. And we've recently brought out a zero alcohol sparkling, which is quite lovely. That's quite fun. But we're going to continue to push the boundaries with our zero alcohol wines and other products as well. So I think we'll be looking at some other things as well we can do in that category. Look, we're a wine company, so we're always going to be producing good examples of classic New Zealand alcoholic wine. But I think we see that it's really important now to complement that with zero alcohol alternatives to give people the choice. When the circumstances are such that they don't want to drink alcohol, it gives them the ability to have that experience without it. And that's what we're all about.
Well, one of the beautiful things about what you do over there at Giesen is that you can always guarantee that there's consistency in the product and the wines are well made, whether or not they do or do not have alcohol in them. So thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure. I have maybe 50 more questions to ask you, but I'll spare you this time around at least. Before we say goodbye, do you have any last comments or thoughts to share with us?
Oh, look, I just think that, thanks for everyone who supported the wines. And I think that if people are thinking about it, give them a try, And what I love to say to people is with zero alcohol wine, there is no rules. You can drink it how you want. We encourage people to drink them the same way as they would a regular wine. But if you like it with some soda water in and a slice of lemon or the sparkling wine that we've just created makes a really lovely zero alcohol mimosa with some orange juice. Have fun with it, and these are adult beverages that don't have alcohol in. So have a bit of fun with it and see how you can integrate it into your lifestyle.
Thank you so much for your time, Duncan. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you and learning a little bit about some of the secrets over there at Giesen. And we hope to see you soon again.
Thanks, Antoinette. Absolute pleasure. And do come over to visit us in New Zealand sometime.
Excellent. Thanks.
Thanks so much.